Welcome back, Wolfpack. Verlis here, and this is how to use Forretress. So today we're going to take a look at the typing first, because the bug steel typing is absolutely busted. Let's go and see what we have. We have an immunity to poison. We have resistance to normal, bug, steel, grass, psychic, ice, dragon, and fairy. This Pokemon isn't going to take anything from no one except fire types. You are 4 times weak against fire, but I think the trade-off is very, very fair in this case, that you resist so much. Even your neutral hits are really good to have, and you only have to worry about one typing, and the rest doesn't really matter. I wanted to show the typing first because now we can look at the stats, and the stats are really, really strong on Forretress as well. That 140 on that defense means you're not going to be taking anything from physical Pokemon. 75 hit points could be a little better, but 140 defense with that 75 is very strong. 90 attack means you can actually put out some offensive damage, and the rest, well, you know, 60 in the special defense isn't that great. You are still a little susceptible special defensively, especially if you do get hit by a fire type attack, since most of them are special except for like Flare Blitz. And then when you look at the speed, 40 speed, so you're just a super tanky, slow moving Pokemon, and we can actually make that work really well. Hopping into Pokemon Showdown, we're going to see that Forretress is actually a very diverse Pokemon, that it can play multiple roles on your team, and depending on what you want it to do for you, it can be very strong at a lot of them. So the first off is just going to be a lead, and Forretress has a lot of entry hazards behind it, that you can use Spikes, Stealth Rock, Toxic Spikes, and Rapid Spin. So you can also be an anti-lead while just setting up completely against your opponent. Stealth Rocks, okay, they set up Stealth Rocks back. Rapid Spin, they might use U-turn, or they might just try to switch out. Then you can go for another Spikes, Toxic Spikes, do whatever you need to with Forretress. That as long as they don't have, if they don't lead a Fire-type Pokemon, you're going to be able to get off multiple entry hazards most likely, and then that means you can also look for the Rapid Spin to get rid of their entry hazards, and you can come away with this with a super amount of advantage. So it is really interesting to be playing Forretress like that. And the idea here is you invest hit points, you invest special defense, and then you just put the rest of your points into defense with a defensive nature. This is actually going to balance you out about as well as possible. That with the Impish, you're going to be really boosting that 140 defense. Putting the rest of your points into special defense is going to make a huge difference. I mean, 156 to 219, you're getting a really heavy gain, close to 50% more special defense, which you wouldn't get with your defensive investment, then your hit points. So this is just going to make you a really well-rounded tank, and you're just going to try to set up against everything very effectively. Leftovers means that you're going to be able to get a little bit of sustain, and one of the more important things behind Forretress is the sturdy ability. Sturdy means that if it's at full hit points, it will always survive with at least 1 hit points from full, so at least you're always going to get a Stealth Rock off. You're always going to get your setup, and then if they don't blow you up like that, now you're just looking to be a super tanky Pokemon that gets multiple setups going for it. Now, Forretress can also run super gimmicky, which is actually really awesome. That Sturdy Custap is an incredible combo. Custap Berry is a berry that pretty much gives you a quick claw effect on the next turn after getting dropped below a quarter of your hit points. Sturdy means that from full, you're going to survive with 1 hit point. Hey, look at that. That's going to combo out great. And then we can just, you know, set up Stealth Rocks, get blown up, use Explosion, knock out your opponent's Pokemon. So, I mean, now you're trading 1 for 1 under most circumstances because, you know, Explosion has high base damage, and if you're investing into your attack, high likelihood of knocking out opponent, and you have Stealth Rocks on the field. So you can really come out of this with a good advantage, and there's also one other thing, that when we look at this, well, Adamant Nature, that way we're getting the most damage out of Explosion, but why do we want hit point investment if we're running Sturdy? That, you know, it kind of doesn't make sense, but at the same time, putting stats anywhere else on Forretress just feels really weird. So what I was looking into was that for an egg move, it gets Endure. So now we actually have multiple chances to get Custap Berry working. So, and we can also still be fairly tanky with high amounts of damage. So the idea is you set up Stealth Rocks, you don't necessarily take enough damage, then you can use Endure if they did over half your health, or you just go for Spikes, then Endure, and then eventually you're going to get your Custap Berry procced, you're going to be able to explode, and now we're looking at multiple setup options. You know, Sturdy is still a good thing to carry even with Endures, like say if they have a Fire type. Now you can still get the Stealth Rocks, and now you can still trade with a Fire type Pokemon, and that's one of the best feelings ever. So this is one way of running for Forretress. With Forretress, you can also run pure defensive tank, and you're not really looking for setup. That even though Forretress is the entry hazard Pokemon, by doing something different than expected, you might be able to get an advantage from it. So what you want to do is try to use the rest of your team to eliminate anything that Forretress is weak to. Mostly Fire-type Pokemon, and if you can get some special attackers out of the way, that works out really well. So if you can pretty much make it to where your opponent has mostly physical Pokemon, Forretress is just going to win it for you. The idea is you set up Toxic, you go for the Pain Split, you get some health back, you use Earthquake and Gyro Ball, and then you just win by being tankier than them. That because your defense is so high, fully investing in the hit points, fully investing into defense, not really caring about any special attackers because you should have taken care of them by now, Forretress is going to become a win condition and actually going to be able to tear through the rest of your opponent's team. Now, what I do like is that it does get Pain Split, which does create some really interesting things. That if you're lowish on health, you set up the Toxic, use Pain Split, well, they're only taking a little bit of Toxic damage, so they're still going to be close to full health. Now you're getting a lot of your health back from that Pain Split, then Toxic into an Earthquake or a Gyro Ball. Now you're looking at putting them into close KO range in just a couple of turns while also still staying very healthy. This Forretress really just shows the power of establishing a win condition, that you know what Forretress needs to actually potentially carry and sweep a game. So if you set it up, I've seen it work before, and it can actually do a lot of work. Now also, we can take some other elements and put it into the original set, that instead of Toxic Spikes, you can just straight up run Toxic, if you really care to do so, because if one layer of Toxic Spikes is on the field, you're really going to not get that Toxic effect. However, Toxic Spikes does combo with something like Venoshock. So really, you can also use Forretress for expanding on the rest of your team, and eventually you might find one that suits you, that, you know, pure entry Pokemon if you need an entry hazard Pokemon, the super Custat Berry gimmick, and then just leftovers Pain. So, hope you guys enjoyed this video. That's how you use Forretress in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I hope you all have a nice day.